welcome to the Voice of the Coast. I am your host, Danica. Along with me, we have Dr. Teresa Bagwell, who is the Superintendent of St. Mary Parish School Board, or Schools, excuse me, and we're going to pretty much kind of hit the ground running here. On this show, you know, we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, so unfortunately, we start with the ugly. And we talked about it prior to this, and I just wanted to ask you about an anonymous letter. Now, this letter also came to our news station, and I'm assuming it also went to a couple of other news stations as well as the school board. And in that letter, it identified a couple of things. First, are you aware of it? And it's the most recent anonymous letter, because from what I understand, you guys get it all the time.
Yeah, I am aware that an anonymous letter exists, yes.
Okay, and are you aware of what's in it?
No, not exactly.
Do you want to know what's in it?
Not necessarily. That the letter wasn't addressed to me, so I'm assuming that the writer intended it to be viewed by certain people.
Okay, then in that case, how do you respond to that?
Well, I don't respond. And honestly, in my role as superintendent, there are times when I get anonymous letters from individuals, and those letters are just placed on the side. There's no way to respond. There's no way to address anything because there's no one to address it with.
Okay, so you don't want to know what's in it?
No,
Okay.
and we have a practice of not responding or doing anything with anonymous letters because they're just that, they're anonymous.
Okay, all right. Well, that was the first pretty much, I guess, ugly news that I really wanted to get out the way and address with you. Secondly, while this may not necessarily be ugly, it definitely is a truth that is pretty much all over the nation. And we're talking about safety. The latest example that has hit the national headlines is the school shooting in Uvalde. So every time something like that happens, we kind of reflect on home. Have there been more discussions or additional upgrades to safety at home, at our own schools here in the parish?
Yeah, over the last few years, one of the major projects that we took on was adding a double door security system to all of our schools. That'll be completed at the end of the summer when Patterson High, Berwick High, the alternative program, and LaGrange Elementary gets that added double door so that when someone comes into the school, they are not immediately within the student population. There's actually a little lobby area that they would wait in until they're allowed into the school building or directly into the office. The other thing that we've added is we are actually upgrading and updating our security cameras in all of our schools, and we completed that with our school buses as well.
We were talking about this. I mean, the fact that you're a superintendent, former school teacher, I never imagined maybe having this kind of conversation with you. Have you thought about the safety to this extent as far as trying to keep the kids safe on a day-to-day basis?
I was a teacher during Columbine, and that was such a shock to us. You know, we never imagined anything of that magnitude happening in any high school. So unfortunately, when Columbine happened, you did think, like, how in the world am I going to protect all my kids with my two arms? How am I going to fit them? After that time, we actually had Morgan City PD came into Morgan City High and kind of did a walkthrough to get a lay of the floor plan and windows and different things. So we started taking security measures. The inclusion of school uniforms happened after Columbine. So it is something that is highly unfortunate, but it is something that you do think about because your number one goal is to protect your kids.
I mean, in addition to knowing your curriculum, do you think that now teachers need to be more proficient on active shooter, style methods?
I think we all need to be vigilant because with every unfortunate event like what happened in Uvalde, you learn lessons from that. Maintaining the door security, making sure the doors are shut, making sure they're locked, making sure your classroom door is shut and locked. making sure that, you place furniture in a certain area to avoid being seen from a window. Taking the drills seriously. We have multiple drills throughout the school year. So making sure that those drills are taken seriously and that lessons are learned through the drills instead of after an event such as that.
Right. I know one of the things that you mentioned was that you try to make sure that, the schools, I mean, even at your office, excuse me, that you're the last person out, and you typically try to just lock the door, pull on the door.
I pull on the door to make sure it's shut all the way.
Yeah.
So it's simple things like that we do to try to protect and safeguard our buildings, because you just don't know who could happen by and want to do something that's, unsavory.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to take a short break, but come on back right here on the Voice of the Coast. Welcome back to the Voice of the Coast. Again, I am your host, Danica. Along with me in the studio, we have Dr. Teresa Bagwell, who's the superintendent with St. Mary Parish Schools. Okay, we've talked about active shooter because, it's all over the news, and we're going into 2023. Not only do we have to worry about that, we also have to worry about COVID. Here today, gone tomorrow, back again. 2023, what's the stance on? Are there any, I know we don't have necessarily any federal or state mandates, but what about on the school level?
So at the school level, we're actually going to be a little more open than what we were last year. Currently, the wellness protocols will stay in effect in terms of monitoring any student who arrives at school sick and making sure that they go home. We will be open to visitors coming into the school like we used to be, before COVID was ever something that people were aware of. Certainly the student activities like the proms and the graduations and open house, face-to-face, those kinds of things will return.
Okay. Because we've had this COVID discussion for now almost like 3 years, we've had students do the virtual, and I think just as of last year, you still had a couple of students that were still utilizing the virtual platform. Are we going to continue that going into 2023 as well because of just,
Right.
people are still fearful of COVID?
Well, and honestly, St. Mary Parish Schools has had a virtual learning program for over a decade. So we've ran a virtual option for students who needed it for various circumstances. So that will kind of go back again to the way it was before COVID, where a lot of the kids who utilize it for a specific purpose. Kids who have long-term illnesses or who are going to be hospitalized for an extended length of time, kids that just have a particular situation that prevents them from coming on campus, they will still have that option to be part of the virtual learning program.
Okay. We understand that there were some ESSER funds. The acronym kind of leaves me at the moment, but it's federal funding. Has any of that money been set aside for any type of technological upgrades throughout the schools?
Yeah, actually the first round of ESSER funding was the funds that we used to provide every student with a device, some sort of a HP Stream or a laptop. It's also being used for all of our technology upgrades regarding security. We are using those funds to help train students and teachers on technology integration in the classroom. We also are using it for maintenance and upkeep of the schools themselves. So we have increased the number of access points that we have at a school. So students actually could log into a school internet service from outside in the parking lot if they wanted to, because we just extended that level of access to our internet service.
Oh, so the Wi-Fi has now been a little bit, has been extended.
Correct.
What about, again, since we've had this virtual platform for a while, do we still have those access points for kids who are in areas where a lot of that is not available? You know, it's particularly in some of the rural areas.
We have some that are available, but honestly, we haven't had anyone that needed those. There are a few places that are quite isolated, and I don't know if it's that they don't have students in those areas, but we haven't really had anyone that needed that. So, but you know, keep in mind too, we went back to school in September of the pandemic, so we didn't stay virtual very long.
Okay, and this may not be the proper way to say this, but do you think 2023 is going to be more of a normal, average type of school?
Yes. Yes, it is.
I mean, because yes, we talked about the end of 2022, prom was back, but there were still some reservations, right? I mean, so 2023, I just, you know, wanted to know, do you think that this is the start of a new beginning?
I sure hope so. And I mostly hope so for our kids, because our kids have had too much disruption and turmoil, and they need to get back to a normal school life.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we're going to take another break. Come on back right here on The Voice of the Coast with yours truly. Welcome back to The Voice of the Coast. My guest is Dr. Bagwell. Let's get right back into what we were talking about. We talked about the ESSER funds, technological upgrades to the school. What about HVAC upgrades? Did a portion of those funding of that money go to any type of upgrades into the schools at all?
Yeah, we actually try to use the bulk of our funding to give our schools longevity and stability. So there were numerous HVAC upgrades that are needed. So we did use some of our funds for those upgrades. And then also we are going to be re-roofing all 21 schools. So that was a major undertaking for our maintenance department.
Has that already started?
It has already started, yes.
21 schools, new roofs?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and that will take years to accomplish.
Yes. Okay.
But and at the end of the day, our schools will be, you know, strong, stable, and you know, airtight, which is part of what the monies are to be used for, is to ensure air quality.
And that's quite a ticket. Do you have the ticket on that? The price, how much the cost?
For the roofing upgrades, I believe it was nearly $20 million.
Wow. So, so pretty much $1 million per school. Okay. So we're going to have new schools. Are the schools flat? Or
Yes,
do they, okay,
they are.
So I want to ask about that.
And I'm told that flat roofing has its limitations.
Right. Yeah. Oh, with hurricanes, I've learned quite a lot about roofs. So, unfortunately. So, but the longevity of those roofs are pretty.
Right. That'll give us
long.
20, 30 years worth of longevity for our schools. So that'll certainly be helpful for those down the road.
Okay. And now summer camp. I did see another media outlet take a snapshot of that. We actually talked about it for the first time last year. It was the first time for the 2-week summer camp. And you guys extended it to not include just the elementary school, but also the middle school.
Right. We offered it to middle school students for the first time this year. All of it is voluntary. So the number of students that we were able to enroll in the summer adventure camp is always just a joy to see, because it is completely voluntary. Fortunately, it was such a success last year that we had more students enroll this year. We had a waiting list for a while, but our middle school students were able to participate this year too. So it went from, you know, pre-K all the way to 8th grade.
Now, because of that, more students, that means more staff. Did many other teachers, sign on? Because I'm sure you had to have a lot more.
Yeah, we did. And we were able to get the teaching staff that we needed. A lot of them who participated last year really enjoyed it. They loved seeing the kids and how excited the kids were to participate in all the activities that we had planned. It was all thematic. So the kids were able to do a lesson in English that parlayed into an activity in art. And they did different physical activities like dance and games and things like that. So the teachers really enjoyed just doing something different.
Yeah, it's outside of the norm. It's not school, but it's still a school environment. It was from 8 a.m. to noon. Was there busing? Were the kids still able to use, utilize the busing system?
Yeah, we ran school buses for the adventure camp.
And it being free, I know typically around the summertime, CAA, Community Action Agency, is known for their summer feedings. Did you guys work in collaboration?
Actually, since COVID, the Community Action Agency summer feeding program kind of changed a lot, because there was that summer when we weren't able to feed kids in person. They also changed their sites to some of the community centers. So running the summer adventure camp last summer, they ran in tandem to the summer adventure camp. So once summer adventure camp stopped, they picked up at those school sites. Now this year, there was only one school site that they asked to use, and unfortunately it was it was in some serious maintenance with flooring and things like that, so they moved it to a community center as well.
Okay, all right. Well, we have one more segment to go, so come on back right here on The Voice of the Coast. Welcome back to the Voice of the Coast. Let's continue that conversation, because 2 weeks sounds great. And, the kids seem like they love it. Again, it's an adventure for them. The teachers love it because, again, it's a school environment, but it's not, it's like really fun learning, right? Where you have art and, granted, I'm sure there's still instruction, but it's just something that the kids really want to do, right? 2 weeks. Have you guys ever thought about maybe making it a little bit longer?
Actually, we did. The first summer that we started this, if you remember correctly, our school year didn't end until June 4th. So the summer adventure camp actually didn't start until the second week of June. This year, our school year ended at the end of May, like it normally does. And so we were able to start a little bit earlier. We've debated having maybe a month-long program, or maybe at least a 3-week program, and that's that delicate balance between having summer adventure camp and getting in all the learning and the fun that you can in that setting, but also allowing some learning to take place at home and some fun to take place at home, because many families go on vacation, many teachers go on vacation, so you want to have that delicate balance between the end of a school year program, time for a vacation, and then time for them to come back and start their trainings for the next school year. This year we added 5 days of training to the beginning of the school year. So our students actually will not return to school until August 10th this year.
Okay.
Usually that was around the 7th or the 8th. So this year teachers will be in school for a week in advance of the students arriving, and it's designed to prepare them, to have them be on their best footing for the students when they arrive on that first day of school.
And I get it. I mean, they, teachers and the students, they deserve to have that family time. I totally get it. As much as I'd like, no, make it longer, but there really truly isn't a full 2-month vacation. We, I could tell you that even when I was in school, like it was getting earlier and earlier to start school. So you don't really have that break as much as you think you do. Let's kind of talk about some legislation. Now it is required that parents register their kids for kindergarten. That just blew my mind. I just automatically thought 5 years old, depending on where your birthday lies, because we know there's a cutoff, you're going to kindergarten, but that's not, that has never been necessarily the case.
Correct. Kindergarten was never mandatory in Louisiana until the last legislative session. So that actually takes effect this school year, where every 5-year-old has to be enrolled in a kindergarten. So if your child hasn't registered for kindergarten yet, please make sure you do that as soon as possible so that we can make sure that they have all their materials ready to go and they're assigned to the proper class.
This opens up a whole can of worms of a conversation. It's almost like if if it was never a requirement, your kid is going from 5 years old straight into first grade and not necessarily having the foundation, the basic learning that typically happens before you go to first grade. First grade is like big school. It really is big school. So that's interesting. Before we end, any words for students and parents going into the new school year? About 30 seconds.
I guess my message to students and parents is we can't wait to see you. We've missed you all summer, and we're excited to offer you the exceptional education that St. Mary promises to our families.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. As always, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. We are KWBJ Live, and also on Facebook, KWBJ TV 22. That is all for us. We'll see you guys next time.